I had a laptop I wanted to sell. I'd owned it for about 2 years and took very good care of it, but the software I used in my business required something with more processing power. So, I decided to sell the old laptop on Craigslist. I had received very good service from that laptop up to that point. I never encountered any problems. However, in the advertisement, I made it very clear that it was 2 years old, that I never experienced any issues, but that I wasn't providing any guarantees. The price I asked for it was completely in line with the market. Anyway, this guy named Daryl contacted me. He seemed very interested. I arranged for him to pick it up at my place. That was obviously a mistake. He showed up that evening at the agreed time. He seemed a bit off. I mean, he wasn't the friendliest person, and though he drove a decent car, he looked a bit unkempt. He didn't say much. Anyway, I demonstrated to him that the laptop was in good working order. He mumbled something I couldn't understand. He paid me cash, took the laptop, and left my house without saying so much as goodbye. A week later, I received a call from Daryl. He was extremely abusive, explaining that the laptop crashed and he lost all his data. I felt terrible that this happened to him and immediately offered to refund him. I also asked him if there was a cost associated with the lost data and if he had kept any backups. However, before I could finish my sentence, he angrily threw down the phone in my ear. Later that night, I received a text saying he is going to make me pay. I texted back and asked him to send me his bank account details so I could refund him for the laptop. I also requested that we keep the conversation civil, reminding him of the importance of backing up important data and emphasizing that the laptop never gave me any problems. He sent me the bank account number and I repaid the money for the laptop. The next night, I got a call from an unlisted number. It was Daryl. He yelled at me. He said no amount of money could repay his lost data. Once more, I explained that he should have kept backups, but if there was a realistic cost associated, I was willing to pay a portion of his losses. With an ominous tone, he insisted that no money could compensate, but that he will make me pay in other ways. I told him to keep it civil and warned that I would end the call if he didn't stop threatening me. In response, he told me to fuck off, and once again, angrily threw the phone. After that, he went silent. I didn't hear from him again. However, 2 weeks later, I awoke one night to flickering light coming from my bedroom window. I looked outside and saw that my mailbox was on fire. Acting quickly, I grabbed the fire extinguisher and managed to put out the fire, which smelled like diesel. It was clear that someone had deliberately set my mailbox on fire. The incident left me shaken and fearing for my safety, unsure of what other retaliation might be in store. At first, I didn't consider him. I thought it might simply be mischievous kids in the neighborhood. However, a week later, something infinitely worse happened. Once again, I woke up to flickering light in the house. To my horror, my car, which was parked in the driveway, was in flames. I immediately called the fire service and they extinguished it, but my car was destroyed. I was in shock. Now I knew that someone with very bad intentions must be responsible, and unavoidably, I thought of him even though it had been a few weeks since our encounter. Then, a few days after the fire, I woke up to a phone call in the middle of the night. It was Daryl, but he was calling from a caller ID block number. He said,
"First your mailbox, then your car. Next it will be your house, with you in it."
And he slammed the phone down. The chilling threat sent shivers down my spine, and I realized that I was facing a dangerous adversary who was willing to escalate the situation to terrifying heights. I immediately called the police. They arrived promptly and took down all the details of the incidents. Due to his initial threatening text a few weeks earlier, stating that he was going to make me pay, they included in their investigation the possibility of his involvement. However, when it came to the fires, he had solid alibis, and there was no material evidence linking him to the crimes. The police informed me that the single text message was not sufficient evidence to pursue charges. It was a frustrating and disheartening realization, knowing that my tormentor might continue to evade justice. A week after that, I received 2 more voiceless phone calls from an anonymous number. All I could hear was someone breathing on the other end. It was clear to me that he was a highly intelligent sicko who was very good at covering his tracks, and it was only a matter of time until he might carry out his threat to burn my house down with me inside it. Eventually, I made the decision to sell the house. I moved to another suburb and kept my details unlisted. Since then, I haven't heard from him again, but I am keeping a low profile, constantly vigilant and cautious, knowing that he could resurface at any moment. Back then, I was still at college. I was on an athletic scholarship. One Friday night, my friends were all gone for the weekend, and I stayed at the dorm. My folks lived 2 states away, too far for the weekend. In my boredom, I scrolled through Craigslist. I've been collecting snuff boxes since my teens. I know it is a strange hobby in our modern times, but it was my grandpa who got me going with it. That evening, I stumbled upon what seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a rare 19th century snuff box, a type I have been searching for ages. Adding it to my collection was too tempting to resist. The advertisement itself was strange. There was a picture, but almost no description of it. Yet it piqued my interest. I found myself reaching out to the seller. I wanted to know more. As we exchanged messages, the seller seemed friendly enough, though a bit elusive. He was quick to respond to my inquiries, but avoided giving too much detail about the item itself. Yet, that did not damp my interest. I was determined to seal the deal. When the seller suggested meeting in a deserted park after dark, I'll admit, I had my reservations. Meeting a stranger in the dead of night wasn't exactly my idea of a safe transaction. Yet the promise of finally acquiring this particular item outweighed my concerns. Besides, the seller assured me it was for safety reasons. I convinced myself it was just a precaution. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to the meeting, telling myself it would all be worth it in the end. Little did I know, I was about to walk into the most terrifying experience of my life. I should have known better, but the allure of a bargain blinded me. As I drove up to the deserted park, I started getting worried. The place was very dark. It felt ominous. I should have heeded my intuition. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to the meeting, telling myself it would all be worth it in the end. Little did I know, I was about to walk into the most terrifying experience of my life. I should have known better, but the allure of a bargain blinded me. As I drove up to the deserted park, I started getting worried. The place was very dark. It felt ominous. I should have heeded my intuition. I hesitated for a moment. Maybe I should turn back, I thought. Unfortunately, my desire to own that item overruled my judgment. Stupid me. Stepping out of my car, I scanned the area carefully. Have you ever been in a place that makes your neck hair stand on end? Well, it was like that. Man, that place was goddamn silent. The only sound was the hum of traffic in the distance. By the time I made my way to the meeting spot, my heart was racing. And believe it or not, even at that point, I ignored my sense to turn back. Man! A van pulled up. The seller, Tim, got out. He was a tall, scrawny character with a long face and stubble. He approached me. In his hand, he had a shopping bag with something in it. The next moment, 3 dodgy-looking dudes got out the back of the van and joined him. I was seriously worried. They were all wearing black and intensely focused on me. Despite my growing sense of unease, I tried to maintain a facade of composure. The seller's tone was smooth. He said I should join them to the van as the item was in their vehicle. I was hesitant and asked him what was in the bag. He said, "Nothing to worry about." That was an odd response, I thought. I said to him, "It's okay. I think I should go home." As I turned around to walk off, he shouted, "Stop!" I looked around. He was pointing a pistol at me. Panic surged through me as I realized what was going on. They weren't here to sell me a snuff box. They were here to snatch me. I was about to become their victim. All four of them charged at me. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I knew I had to act fast. What they did not realize was that I was a very good athlete and sprinter, and I was at the peak of my athletic career. I took off like a bullet from a gun. Frantically, I dashed towards my car, my heart pounding in my chest. It was easy for me to outrun them. Thankfully, I hadn't locked it, and I leapt inside, slamming the door shut and hitting the central locking button just as the group converged on me. They shouted like maniacs as they realized I was escaping, and I wasted no time in starting the engine. But before I could even shift into gear, the van driver, realizing his plan was failing, lunged forward and slammed into the side of my car with bone-jarring force. For a moment, I was disoriented as the impact threw me against the dashboard. Fortunately, it did not disable my car in any way. I later on noticed that my car withstood the impact quite well. The damage was superficial, though at the time I had no idea how severe the damage was. All I knew was that I had to act fast. With trembling hands, I managed to get the car started and peeled out of the parking lot with the sound of screeching tires. I was relieved. She performed as well as ever. The thugs leapt into their van and gave chase, but my car, with its powerful turbocharged engine, outpaced them effortlessly. As I raced through the deserted streets, the glow of their headlights faded into the distance behind me, and I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. Shaken but determined, I headed straight to the nearest police station to report the incident. They took my statement and launched an investigation into the attempted kidnapping, but unfortunately, the perpetrators remained at large. Nevertheless, I was grateful to have escaped with my life, and I vowed never to ignore my instincts again. I remember the day vividly. It started like any other mundane Craigslist transaction. I had arranged to meet a seller to purchase a used laptop, unaware that I was about to walk into a dangerous game of cat and mouse with someone who had far more sinister intentions. As I made my way to the rundown motel on the outskirts of town, a sense of unease gnawed at my gut. The location seemed eerily deserted, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. But the promise of a bargain deal urged me forward, and I pushed aside my apprehensions, determined to complete the transaction. Arriving at the motel, I found myself early for our meeting. Eager to make the most of my time, I decided to take a stroll around the area, hoping to kill time before the seller arrived. Little did I know, my decision to arrive early would lead me straight into the heart of danger. As I rounded the corner of the motel, I stumbled upon a disturbing scene that stopped me in my tracks. There, in the dark alleyway, I witnessed a strange exchange between the seller and a group of shady characters. It was clearly narcotics. The plastic bags filled with a white powdery substance was obviously an illegal substance. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the true nature of the situation. I had unwittingly stumbled upon a drug deal in progress. Look, I was shit scared. Panic surged through me as I realized the danger I was in. The individuals involved in the deal spotted me. I could see their eyes going narrow with suspicion of the risk my presence presented them. I was an unexpected witness to their illegal activities. In that moment, I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to escape unscathed. One of them, the apparent leader, had a menacing aura about him, with tattoos peeking out from beneath the sleeves of his shirt. He had a glint of danger in his eyes. His buddies stood close behind him. They crossed their arms defensively as they sized me up. I could feel they stared at me like predators at a defenseless prey. The leader took a step forward. his voice low and threatening as he demanded to know what I was doing there. "Who are you? What do you want?" He sounded real angry. I knew negotiation was not going to be an option. Realizing that my innocent Craigslist venture sent me into this sinister moment gave me a sinking feeling. The men's intentions were clear. They saw me as an intruder, a witness to their illicit activities. There was no hope in hell they would let me walk away. Then, as by divine providence, a jetliner shot overhead at a lower altitude than usual. They all looked up. This was my opportunity to get away. I reacted in less than a second. The moment I heard those roaring engines and as they looked up, I seized the opportunity. I bolted back as I came, with adrenaline coursing through my veins as I ran for my life. I could hear them shout and curse. I ran like a crazy man through those deserted streets. At that moment, the fear of pursuit spurred me on to run faster than I have ever before. I discovered how true it is that adrenaline makes one stronger and faster than usual. It felt like an eternity, yet after a while I came across a convenience store. I went inside to seek refuge. I told the owner criminals are chasing me. It was pretty late anyway, so he did not seem to mind closing up, which he quickly did. He was a kind man. He called the cops, who came to pick me up. They gave me a ride home. Since then, I vowed to trust my instincts and approach every Craigslist encounter with caution, knowing that sometimes the price of a bargain can be far too high. Thank you for listening to these stories. If you found this video intriguing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling content like this. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. Don't miss out on the latest updates and terrifying tales.